welcome to this episode of the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast, where I'm joined by Gabrielle Blackwell from Gong.
Yes.
Gabrielle, welcome.
Hi, Fred. How's it going?
Good, thank you. And you've told me it's Gabrielle today. We're going to be Gabrielle.
Yes, Gabrielle today.
Yeah, I might even be Frederick then from that.
Okay, Frederick. I thought that's only if you're in trouble. So
well, I'm more than likely to get myself in trouble anyway, so we might as well start off like that. Eh?
I'll let you know. Listen, I'll wave a red flag if there's a foul.
Just get it out now. What I want to start with, we'll go into the elements of PQ, but I'm intrigued by your title. You're a SaaStress. Tell me what a SaaStress is, please.
Yes. So there's two parts of it where I was trying to figure out a way to blend, I feel like, these two distinct parts of myself into one entity. So there's the experience that I've been having in SaaS, but I am very much into like magic and being like a hippy dippy witch lady. So I have like my stones, I have my crystals. And so I was thinking about like an enchantress. And I was so like walking down. So I have this piece of like, all right, how do I hold these two parts of myself all together? And I also wanted to come up with something that would just make me smile and make me laugh. So I was walking down the stairs one day and I was like, well, we have SaaS, there's enchantress. And I was like, SaaStress. And I just started cracking up laughing. I'm like, and I like walked down the stairs and immediately changed my LinkedIn tagline to that. So that's really where SaaStress comes from.
I like it. It works for me. It's pretty cool. I've never had a hippy dippy witch lady on a podcast before either. So it's really cool. Actually, you just made me think. Have you ever seen, I think it's a Netflix series called Orphan Black?
No, I have not.
Or have a quick look at that. Be careful not to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but it's the same actress who plays a number of different characters, and they all refer to each other as SaaStress.
Okay.
Well, one of them certainly does. It's very cool. It's a very, very good series. I enjoyed it a lot.
All right, I'll check it out.
There we go. Right, well, so we better talk about some sales, really, rather than nicknames and Netflix and whatever.
Your podcast.
This is what people want. They're like, we get sales tips all over the shop, which is why I do try to be quite focused in the stuff that we talk about, because I use PQ, partnering skills, as the way in which salespeople can really get this mindset and how they can collaborate and be far more modern in their approach. I believe that's where selling's at. And so we've got these 6 elements that we can go through. And, I'd love your take on some of these, because I know they're going to be practical. They might be a bit hippy dippy, even better.
Hippy dippy.
This is good. This is good. Well, let's kick off then. So let's start with trust. I mean, I always kick off with that one. All these things are interlinked, but trust kind of makes sense to kick off with. So yeah, how can a salesperson build trust? What can we do to bring that as part of our selling?
How about this? If I ever felt like I did not trust someone, it's probably because of one of two things. Either one, they were not listening, like they were just talking at me the whole entire time. That was one. That's like one part of it. They're probably two sides of the same coin. So it's like they're not listening, therefore they don't understand me. So therefore, I cannot trust that they know what's best for me, or that they're working in my best interests, because they don't know what my best interests are, because they're not curious about it. So that's like one big thing. I think about times where someone has had my trust and then lost it. And a lot of times it means that what they say and what they do not align. I'm like, wow, I cannot trust that this person will actually follow through on what they said they were going to do. So what a salesperson, in my opinion, can do here is, on the first part of building trust, is listen, get curious, seek to understand. I talk about it from a personal perspective of what enables me to really trust someone more, or trust someone's direction, is they really have a solid understanding of my own best interest. And so some of these things might be, hey, what are the things that you're committed to? What are the things that you have to deliver upon for your business? Like, what is in your best interest? That, I think, if we don't understand those pieces, then it doesn't really matter if we have the absolute best solution in the world for them. We're not going to actually know how it applies to their own best interest. And then for the second part is, if you say that you're going to do something, make sure that you can follow up with it. And if you can't follow up with it, like over communicate. I had a VP of sales that I used to report into. And one of the things that he would always share is the person who reports first reports best. So it's much better to be that person who says, hey, listen, I know I said I could do X, Y, and Z. I circled back with my team, found out I was mistaken. And here's something else that we can do though, right? Versus it being, all right, we move further along in the conversation, further along in the engagement, and the customer or the prospect finds out, oh, you can't do what you said that you were going to do. Like those to me are the really big pieces for building and then maintaining and sustaining trust.
Oh, I think they are spot on. I love that reports first, reports best, and then do something about it. And customers are pretty forgiving, really. If you were genuine, as in, so I thought we could do that, or something has happened I didn't know was going to happen. I didn't know COVID was going to come along and that we couldn't do some of these things, but here is what we can do instead. Makes a load of sense.
Yeah, because I mean, that's also, that part hits big time, like trust with the prospects or with your buyer, but also trust internally, especially if you have like specialized team across your revenue function. So if we hear about this, if sales is selling things that the product can't actually do, engineering is upset, product is upset, customer success, right, is essentially set up to fail. And then now you're going to have a retention and churn problem later on. So it's not good. It's like, it's not good for the folks that you're engaging with externally, but it's also starts to impede upon the trust that you could be building or that you already have with your internal partners.
That is so cool. I mean, and add to that list, you probably said the finance people and your boss and their boss, basically everybody.
We've seen, I'm sure we've all seen it, where you've got a gun-ho VP of sales who's like, we're going to go up market, right? And in order to do that, we're going to need this, that, and that means we need to have our security and compliance set. We need to actually build out a post-sales team that can handle enterprise customers as well. And we need to go global. And it's like, no. So the VP of sales is selling that to people and the company's not ready for it at all.
Yeah.
It's just like, so you have a bottleneck with customer success where they can only take care of one customer, but now everybody else in your small, medium-sized businesses don't have the resources that they need.
So they're going to cause a problem one way, shape, or form.
Like it's going to show up somewhere else in the business, which typically it's just not to me, that's when you start impeding the health of the organization. And of course, that's going to show up with your customers as well as with your prospects. So yeah, that's the trust piece.
That is a brilliant way of describing trust. And even the listening bit. I mean, isn't that the fun bit of selling? Being interested in other people, being curious, finding out about them. I find it quite sad that, I've got to get through this stuff so then I can talk about me. Maybe I'm just nosy, I want to know about other people, but that's the fun bit, isn't it?
I remember when I was in SDR, so this is 2015, 2016 era, and so my region was like was New York, New Jersey, the East Coast, like Northeast coast of the US, but I also had, I think I had the UK as well. I want to say I did. And I remember I called into a guy and I was just asking questions. He goes, it's like, really fishing. He's like, you're really fishing with me, aren't you? And I was like, what does that mean? But yes.
Was that like someone in the UK?
Yeah, I was someone in the UK. Yeah. So I was like, I became a fisher.
There are some pretty strong accents over here, so yeah, I'm trying to work out whereabouts that would be. But
it was.
That's a compliment. That's you're showing interest. You wanted to find out more. I was
really interested, and that's something I really try to share out with of course the folks who are on my team. I'm managing a sales development team. I've been in situations where I'm coaching I'm coaching one-on-one, or I'm coming in for like an AMA or a panel. And actually later on, I'll be teaching a course through Pavilion. And that's the biggest thing that I share is like, be curious. Everything else, like your product knowledge and whatever else, that's going to develop over time. But this piece around really being really being present in the conversation, like not trying to reach for things. Like, for example, this is something that I hear a lot with my reps. So with Gong, if we have 3 main value propositions, such as we provide insights into like what makes your best performers that maybe your bottom performers aren't doing. Like, how can you capture that, distill down what the best performers are doing, and then pass that on? That's the people insights. There's the deal insights and visibility, where you can start to track, like, okay, where's there risk or potential discrepancies in my pipeline? And this third piece is really like, all right, as we're listening to all these conversations, like how often are competitors getting mentioned, or what are people saying about pricing? So it's much more about market intelligence in that way. So what I'll hear folks do on the phone, SDRs, is they'll call someone, they'll be like, okay, so you say, like Fred, let's say you're like, hey, there's that one piece that you mentioned around people. Like, I'm really curious about that. And then so it's like, great, wonderful. Like, let's keep on learning. What are you curious about? But instead the rep goes, okay, great, we can definitely do that. Now let me tell you about deal intelligence. I'm like, no.
Stop. Yeah.
No, right. And then, because I would imagine the experience for, like, let's say Fred, if you were the prospect, the experience for you could be, actually, let me not tell you, like, if you're in that situation, how do you feel if you said like one thing and then someone goes off on a totally different direction? Like, how does that impact you when you're on a call?
Yeah. Well, what's most people's favorite subject? In fact, what's everyone's favorite subject?
Themselves.
Of course it is. So get them to talk about themselves. You're already making a friend. I mean, it's kind of, the interested people are interesting, aren't they? Which is the kind of the worst way around. And then that other famous quote is, are you listening, or are you just waiting to talk? And then that's what they're doing. They're survey listening, aren't they? Going, you said people, I know, click, value prop on people, off we go. Right. Yeah. Actually, that was a tiny little thing. Really, it's all the deals I'm losing. But we never got around to that.
Yeah. So, it's one part of me thinks that it should be way easier to do. So I wonder, like, why do we struggle so much as a profession with that one?
Okay, bit of a mini theory here. I'm supposed to be asking the questions.
I know.
You're good at this stuff. Hey, can tell you're coaching today because you're warming up really well. It could be something to do with getting 14 weeks product training and about 3 minutes sales training. How about that? That could be one of the reasons that we get it wrong, because from the very start we get the balances wrong, and so your brain is going, well, actually that's where the time has got to be put. Right. Cure. Don't train people in products. There we go.
Yeah.
Fred goes, just loads of sales training. Of course I'm going to say that. No, but seriously, if you think about it, you get lots of product training, your brain is full with that. And again, sometimes it's because you're so keen, you're excited about this stuff. Gong's such a cool product. I mean, it really is. You want to talk about it, but you got to kind of bottle that and just wait, don't you? So that's one thought on it anyway. Anyway, it's about your thoughts we're here for, not mine.
I know you got to keep.
I can record my own podcast for that.
There's one. It's true. There's this one concept, and then I promise I'm gonna let you have your podcast back.
No. Carry on.
Yeah, I'm pulling a Kanye right now. It's like, I'm gonna let you finish, but so before I started at Gong, the senior director is the one who hired me on. I was asking him some questions about, like, how can I prepare, and he highly recommended checking out any literature for the Sandler methodology. So I read You Can't Teach a Kid How to Ride a Bike at a seminar, and there's this one concept that really stuck out for me, which was the dummy curve. And it's, people start off brand new, they don't know anything, and of course they know they don't know everything. So they just ask a lot of questions, they're really curious, and then they start getting all this training, and then they know all these things, and then they get so excited about knowing all the things that they share all the things that they're excited about, and you start to see that their production slips. And then they get to a point in their career where they know enough to not let everybody know what they know.
Yeah.
Then that's when we're going back to kind of like that beginner mindset of I'm going to ask a lot more questions. So I remember, and then I got one more. I remember I was sitting in an airport, or I was on an airplane one day, and I was complaining big time. I had a lot to complain about, and I just started complaining to my neighbor. And I just remember we stayed in contact, and he told me, he goes, "You're smart, and you don't have to go around trying to convince everyone of how smart you are." And I at that point in time, it allowed me to just be like, listen, I don't have to present as anything else but myself. People will recognize the other things later on over time, but I don't have to assert so much in the first interaction that I have with them.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm really pleased we've gone down this route, because again, I see it a lot in salespeople, particularly sort of more junior, newer ones, who feel I've got to show I know stuff. Well, the point is, the person you're trying to show will know more than you anyway. So actually, you're not really going to show off to them. But, and asking questions, it isn't a bad thing. An intelligent question can make you look very, very clever indeed. Except it takes some explaining, and it needs a bit of experience for you to realize that, I think. But when you do, that's when you have great conversations. Yeah. I think it's the best thing a salesperson can hear is someone go, "Oh, that's a really good question."
Yeah.
Not, "Oh, your demo was really good." I mean, nobody actually says that anyway. It's like, I can't expect it to be. If you're going to demo it, it's got to be cool. But making me think, that'll give you way, way more kudos for me.
So there's like the questions that we ask. One of the things that I really paid attention to when I first started as an SDR. So this is, so 2015, I was working at a company called CloudWords. It was a translation management system, super cool technology that like nobody was really creating in this, like the translation and localization industry was like $2 or $4 billion industry that had not gone through any kind of modernization in like the last 20-30 years. So just like ripe for innovation. So we had this awesome product that no one knew about, and no one had the budget for it. Absolutely no product market fit, but it was super duper cool. And as an SDR, people were really like, got to a point where they're like, wow, I want to know more about this. But a lot of what I would do is I would shadow all the different AEs. So you had AEs who came from the localization industry. You had AEs who had sold like your typical like SaaS software. You had AEs who had not been AEs previously. They had been CSMs. Then you had some people who are much more tech centric. So I would, this is the days before Gong, but I would listen, I would try and shadow as much as I could. And really the things that I started to pick up on were, what are those moments when we show them something or we say something about the product and how it can support them, and they go, "Oh, interesting. Wow. It's these little tiny, like these moments of there's something that's going on in their brain. They're thinking about something. There's something that inspired something there. And that's where I would know to stop and go, okay, seems like there's something going on here. Like, walk me through, how does this feel? How did this hit you? And that's usually where we got into something really, really interesting versus just going through. So I think there are these like bigger moments that people go, here's exactly what I'm interested in. And also, if we're very present in the moment and we're very much listening, we can also figure out those little tiny nuanced expressions that people have and start to dig in a little bit more to see, okay, like there's something going on in that noggin up here.
Yep.
Right. So those are really like, and it also, the inverse of it, of if we're going through discovery and someone is like, oh, well, I think we're good. We got this little tiny thing here, but we're good. Normally, a lot of people would just bypass that. I was like, hey, can't help but notice that, you mentioned you're good. You got this little thing here. Walk me through that. Because most of the time, those little things aren't very little.
Yeah. We don't give people the chance to really expand on it. And that's the salesperson's job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I love that. Be present, be in the moment. And that's tiring. That's hard work. It's really hard. Well, It is and it isn't. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's,
Yeah.
fascinating. I say I'm nosy, I'm curious. But to really be concentrating to pick up on those, it does take a degree of concentration, I think.
I
I'm a
would imagine.
guy. I'm a guy,
I,
Maybe
I,
maybe
yeah,
my
that's
brain's wired. I'm left brain,
maybe I would imagine. Yeah, maybe that's it, because there are articles, there's literature out there that talk about the difference in performance between men and women. I believe. Oh, these not okay. So the numbers are, it's not a huge margin, but there is like a 5 to 6% margin somewhere around there. So if full-time women sellers are attaining, let's say, like 86 or 83% of their quota, compared to men in that same study, they had like more like six, like, or 76. Right. So there is, and so when Harvard Business Review did an article on this, and when they dug into like what was it that enabled women to experience that 5 to 6%, or however wide that margin was, to experience like that surplus in performance compared to men, a lot of the skills that got mentioned were the empathy and the active listening, right? So there is like, yeah, so maybe there's something that's there, right? Where you're like, I'm a man. It's like, maybe.
Yeah. I'm always a bit careful when I say that. And if people do
Yeah.
challenge me, I will tend to point them towards an excellent book by Barbara and Alan Pease, Pease. The guys who talk about body language. But they've also written one called Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps.
Ah,
Which even the title's funny, and it says, it's just the way we're built, the way we're wired, and the brains are different sizes of hemisphere, the connections between them.
yes.
Even the eyes are built differently, because guys tend to be sort of better at focusing, women better at peripheral vision. It's a fascinating book, and it's
That's
kind of, they're physiological differences, and that's why some of those things will come out.
I
So,
would,
so I've always got that to fall back on to defend
yeah.
whatever thing I come out with next.
Well, I'm over here looking at your like the document that you sent me in preparation for this conversation, and I'm looking at the other uh uh what the other skills that are there, assuming they're called skills. But I'm thinking about, all right, if this is so I have a coach, like I have a professional coach. Thank you, Gon, for sponsoring me. Appreciate you. And and
Oh, you'll be there next month as well. Good one.
um, and and so with the program that I'm going through, they have a strengths assessment. And so there are like there's a litany of different strengths. And what my coach always shares with me is there are some strengths that are more like superpowers, like where I'm above the average. Then there are these strengths that are, they're strengths, right? They're not superpowers, but it's a really solid power. And then there are the strengths that like they continue to be strengths, but they might not be as developed, right? So these are ones that are more so under development. So there are certain, like, so the strengths are, I think there are some times where in leadership or in organizations, the expectation from leadership is people need to be working on the things that need to be developed. Like we need to mitigate we need to get rid of every single weakness. What my coach is sharing with me is like, that is a poor strategy. That's not going to get your people developed. Focus on their superpowers. How can they leverage those that much more? And then over time, you're going to see those other powers start to develop, but that's going to take a long time to do. So I feel like I would lean on this like comfort with change skill, more so of like, all right, if there is a piece here of, all right, for me to be super duper present in the conversation, for me to listen for these little tiny things, or maybe it is this trust piece, like what else can I lean on to bridge whatever gap that I have because I haven't developed this one thing here. So for example, let's say that it's an AE and who's paired up with an SDR. If you are like, if the SDR is really good at listening, and this is something that my first AE that I had when I was an SDR, we had built up a trusting enough relationship where I can coach him during the call that he was having. So like, because he would like bypass something. I'm like, hey, he said this one thing, you might want to go back to it. Right. And so he'd go back to it, and then we would really get into the goods of things. So I would wonder like, what other strengths can you start to lean on that much more to find a creative approach to not being, or a creative approach to still be able to capture the things that you want to capture without tiring yourself out.
Yeah. No, this idea of playing to his strengths makes a lot of sense. And they are skills, by the way. And there is a little self-audit thing you can do. I will fire it over to you afterwards. In fact, I'll put it in the show notes now. So you can answer a couple of questions, get the old spider graph back, saying which ones you're strong in and not. And have a quick chat with your coach about those. So, we've talked about trust. I mean, we're talking about all of these at once because they do come and play together. It's almost like impossible to pull them apart. You know, we're talking about trust, but you're talking about win-win because we're talking about sort of how we can come out of something. Of course, we want to make a sale. We are salespeople, but we're trying to do it in a way that the other party is going to be happy with this, and also that we're not kind of making a loss on it. And you touched on interdependence straight away, because we often talk about, my success as a salesperson is going to be based on your success as a customer, but a lot of people do forget their own team, and actually we're dependent on them. And so by doing things which break trust with them, you're making your life incredibly difficult. So you touched on that straight away. You're ahead of the game immediately. Yeah.
I have some thoughts. I just got some thoughts. A lot of it is observations from the past 6 years. And I've worked at more companies than most employers are comfortable with. So
I love that. Because I'm so in demand.
There was some stuff I had zero control over. It's the risk of working in small startups, and you start to pick up on patterns, right? I think this is the benefit of really paying attention, is the ability to pick up on patterns. And if, like, for me, if I was in a world where I wasn't aware of the patterns, every time something hit me, it'd be like brand new. I'd be like swept off my feet, not in a good way, every single time the same thing happened. But if I start to recognize the patterns of, I think about this for myself from being in a manager position. So there are times that I've had to manage people out because of our performance management protocol. And a lot of that is based off of performance. And so if I only waited for someone's performance to dip to start to go, oh, what's going on? I'm going to lose a lot of people. So what I started to do was I started to map out every single person that I managed. What was their performance journey? And then what this meant was, how do they perform by month? And then I would open up a new page or on a spreadsheet. And then by month, I would put down what was their activities and what were the themes and what were the trends, to help me understand what could have been the things that I could have looked at maybe 2 or 3 months beforehand, so that they weren't caught in that performance management protocol process.
Yeah.
So like that to me is recognizing the pattern so that I can be better. I can respond versus always being on my heels and reacting. And this is what's helping me be able to go, hey, listen, rep, I know you're really worried about performance right now. Here are the things that I'm looking at, but it's not just you. It's also, I have 3 other people's data who matches yours very, very similarly. Here's where we can get ahead of it right here versus continuing this theme for the next 4 weeks. So like, you let me know, do you want to go through performance management protocol, or do you want to nip this in the bud right now? And then we get to choose.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. No, and it is, and being ahead of the game, and you've got their back, and you can give them that feedback. You can really help them. It's such a strong way of managing. So strong.
It's foresight, honestly. So this doesn't mean that I know everything, and the benefit of, because me recognizing the pattern doesn't just happen all like out of nowhere. It's like, for me, it could also be like, let me, instead of typing things out on my computer, I'm going to actually write them down, because I have to take my time and my intention to do so. And it registers in, like, I was like, okay, it's like Harry Potter, with whatever time he was writing, and like etched in his skin. I'm like, that's like me in my brain every time, right? So, or if it's, so like that, so it's very much like, let me, if it's writing things down, if it's taking a moment at the end of the day to reflect, if it's even in a conversation with someone, taking the moment to go, okay, you gave me a lot of information. Here's what I took away from it. Did I get that right? And if they go, yes, it's like, awesome, I got it. But if they say no, okay, cool, correct me. And so, it's like, I can start to like better understand. I can better respond, and I can look out for these things a lot sooner, which gives me more time to respond to the situation versus like maybe that means I have an hour more to respond, a day more to respond, maybe sometimes even weeks or months sooner to respond versus it smacking me in my face every time it happens.
And is that part of it? We're totally on a different track here. I don't care.
Yeah.
This is way better, you know. And thinking about, you know, day in the life of then. So you talked about, you know, you're up early, you're doing the stuff with time for yourself. I mean, you talked about hot yoga this morning. Was that every day, or have you got like a different routine?
Yeah, I go to hot yoga. I've tried to go at least 4 times a week. I sometimes it depends on how I'm feeling. So typically I've been doing like a 6:15 class, but I didn't go last night. And then I woke up at like 4:45 this morning. So I'm like, okay, I can go to the 6 a.m. class instead of going to the 6:15 class tonight. But yeah.
And then do you have a reflection time in the morning? This is what I'm interested in, the kind of the morning and evening reflection and whether those are built in. Because you mentioned that you're kind of doing journaling or something.
I feel as though I get a lot of reflection time done during yoga and also walking my dog.
Right. Yeah, no,
Like,
exactly.
so there are these, I do my best thinking, honestly, when I'm walking my dog. And there are, so I recently read Radical Candor. I finished it about a week or so ago. And in one of the chapters, Kim Scott references a CEO that she had worked for or knew of. And the CEO had thinking time scheduled every day, like an hour or two, closer to 2. She even told the story of there was a president, she didn't name which company, there was a president of a country that wanted to meet with the CEO during one of his thinking times. And he said, no, these are my thinking times. Like that is, can't mess with it. So I also have at least one of those scheduled during my day, every day. So it's more so, it can be so easy to just get caught up in the whirlwind of the day, like internal meetings, Slack messages. Like I've got a team of 8 people right now. It's end of the month. So, hey, GB, I found out that, this account over here. Hey, Gabrielle, like, I don't know this thing. Hey, is this qualified? Hey, can you see it? It's like, whoop. Okay. So it's nice to have those times where I can just like kind of take a step back and think through what's a priority for me. What do I really, okay, I have all this information, all of these requests. I can do an Eisenhower matrix real quick, right? Like which ones do I need to attend to right this very second that are super important? Great. Like which ones can be delegated, those kind of things. And then in terms of the journaling, like yesterday morning, I went to go to breakfast in the city about 30 minutes out. I came early. And so I had like my 10-15 minutes where I got to journal, I got to doodle and things like that. But there are other things that I'm doing, such as like reading an oracle card, reading a tarot card. So I'm not writing that down necessarily, but I might have like one question in my head or one thing that I'm trying to work through that if I just try, I can't think my way through it. So I do like have a daily practice of like drawing a card just to be like, okay, like what can, and it might be a word of the day. So like 2 days ago, I drew an angel oracle card and the word was power. And so then for the rest of the day, I got to reflect on, okay, like what does it look like in the situation for me to maintain a sort of like a sense of power in the situation?
This is so cool. And this is why I'm so pleased we've jumped off track, because I really hope people are listening to this in that you're talking about having thinking time. And this is a different thing to planning time. Planning for me is more kind of the business thing. It's planning the next meeting, it's planning when to write a proposal, it might be planning a business strategy, whatever. But some people don't even put that in. And what you're saying here is no, planning time absolutely should be part and parcel of your day. But even just that thinking time, let the mind go and just do what brains do, what they're designed to come up with ways which you can then work better. Journal it, reflect on it, take time with yourself to get better at what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of salespeople don't do this. We get caught, and I talk about it as one of the 3 challenges of modern selling: busy, busy, busy. Where people are rushing around, doing loads of activity, getting really, really hyper. It's tiring. It's stressful. Yeah,
Is
it's
that
not very
from
good
Death
for
of a
you. It's not very
Salesman?
productive. It's ineffective. Yeah.
Busy, busy, busy. That's from a
Busy.
book. Is it from Death of a Salesman?
Um, I don't know. It probably is. I mean, I talk about busy, 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 oldie worldy, and muddled mindset. They're
Oh no,
ultimately the three biggest challenges.
it's from Cat's Cradle.
Is it?
Cat's
Ah, okay.
Cradle.
I better start. Better start. Give it
No,
that
no,
credit
no,
then.
you're fine. No, Cat's Cradle by man. Okay, now I'm going to read it. I really in high school. I really Kurt Vonnegut. He's just weird, zany, and so no, I just remember. I can recall just the busy, busy, busy from like my junior year of high school.
But we do that. But we know salespeople. They're busy, busy, busy. They're running around and they're just not effective. But this it's not downtime. That's the wrong word. But the thinking time, this quality time, this stuff just to get your head
All
right.
of the time, yeah.
I mean, I you probably know, I talk to a robot.
No, it's
I use a robot app, and it uses AI to ask questions. So
oh,
that
that's
normally
awesome.
it's really cool. So usually,
I
you know,
talk to myself.
I'm not clever enough to do that. I need Rocky. So Rocky.ai, honestly, that's what he's called. I'll send you the link to it as well. Normally, you ask an AI something, don't you? Hey Siri, what's the capital of? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what Rocky does, Rocky asks you questions, and it's using AI to respond to what you type in. I type, I don't actually talk to him, but then it asks the next question. So it's not like it's a scheduled set of questions. The questions are built just for you. That conversation will only ever be with you.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's
Yeah,
very cool. It's
I
very
asked,
cool.
yeah, a lot of my journals, I've got like my bookshelf over there, like whatever. And so I've journaled voraciously. It hasn't been as much since because I took a year off from work. So I burned out in a glorious flame. And
Glorious flame, not a rubbish little one.
not a rubbish one. I mean, scorched, absolutely scorched. And I well there had been other things that were happening that led to the burnout as well, such as just like being in a very unhealthy professional environment. And after that experience of kind of having like an extreme experience of burnout, stepping away from work, having about a year, I didn't work for a year at least. And I would just journal all the time. And what I would do is I would ask myself questions. And so like my journal became like kind of the canvas of my conversations. So it was, there could be a lot of self-doubt. I see this a lot of times with people who are early on because I'm working with them every day. Is there's a lot of what we call like, or what we want to say is like imposter syndrome, or
Mhm.
they're honestly we should just call it that they're insecure. Like they're insecure because or they just don't know what they're doing, and then this doubt can start to creep in. And so what I had started to do was I would just write all those things down. I wouldn't be scared of it, and then I'd respond back to it. So if it's like, oh hey, I feel like I suck at this, it's like, okay, well, what is this, and like what's making you feel like you suck? It's like, okay, well, I didn't book any meetings this week. It's like, oh snap, that must have been really hard. How are you feeling about that? Like, I feel this, I feel that. Okay, cool. Well, how would you want to feel? Oh, I would really like to feel solid in this job. Okay, well, it's keeping you from doing that. I'm not hitting my numbers. Well, what can help you hit your numbers? And I keep on just working backwards and backwards and backwards until I come up with something that's within my control. Like, oh, I didn't get the meetings goal that I needed because I didn't work enough accounts. I didn't work enough prospects. I didn't follow up with my inbound leads. And here are the 3 things that I know I can do and that I'm secure in my ability to do that. So that's what I'm really going to focus on. And I know that if I do these 3 things every single day, over time, my mood will improve. And then the follow up from that would be, all right, great. I said I was going to do these 3 things. This is something I got from Amy Volas. Amy Volas is super dope, y'all. So Amy she gave me this suggestion directly. She's like, journal at the end of the day, or she's like, at the beginning of the day, like draw a square, right, and then put in 4 quadrants. I might butcher this a little bit, but it's in the first quadrant, write down here's what I want to get done. So that's what you do at the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, you write down what did I get done, Like it's, and like, what did I get done? What went well for me today? What kicked my ass today? And so like that, and it could also be like, and how you can also add in a question in there, such as if it's like, hey, I really want to feel this way. Hey, how did I feel today? Or when did I feel this way today? Oh, I felt how I wanted to feel doing these things, or at this time doing these things, talking to these people. And that then starts to help you figure out what are the things that you have to do every single day to help yourself feel really good in what you're doing. And also gain awareness of what are the things that keep kicking your ass, that if this keeps happening, you're not going to want to do the job that you're doing. And then you can start to figure out, how can I craft my job where I can experience more of the former, and then start to lessen the amount of the things that are kicking my ass, or like, where can I go and get help so that my ass doesn't always get kicked. I hope I can swear on here because I swear a lot.
You're doing it so nicely. And of course it doesn't
Okay,
anyway.
Yeah.
You're quoting. Well, we don't want our asses to be kicked, you know. So I mean, that sounds like it works. But what would you say to somebody who says, yeah, but that's all a bit hippy dippy. I'm too busy to do that. What is your kind of response?
I mean, I think there has to be a strong why.
It's a good response. A massive sigh of desperation
Oh,
in there. You don't
no,
get it. But
no, here's my thought is, um, my cousin told me this. She has this quote. She goes, people change for one of two reasons. There's probably more than that, but she broke it down into two categories. It's either because they want to change or because they have to change. So wanting to change might be, hey, Gabrielle, I heard the podcast that you and Fred had, and it really resonated with me. I've been really struggling with work, like feeling burnt out. I just feel like I'm at my wit's end, and there's also a bajillion other things that I have to get done. I just feel like I can't go any longer. And I really want to find a better way. That could be somebody wanting to do it, right? And they're going to be more receptive. Now, someone who says, hey, it's like a selling, right? Like, we can tell people there's a better way, but if they feel like they're perfectly fine, it doesn't really matter what we say. So I would just go like, hey, it's totally fair. The hippy dippy stuff for you it might not be the thing. What stood out to you though? Right? Like, do you want to feel better? Do you want to get better about managing your day? Is it just the part around, the journaling piece for me didn't hit it, but the thinking part did. Okay, cool. Why is that important? Right? Now we get into discovery. If I find out that like, hey, based off of what you're sharing with me, like it sounds like you're doing X, Y, and Z, and here's how it's going for you, but here, you kind of point to a gap, like here's something that it sounds like you're still wanting to figure out, or like here's one thing over here that keeps on smacking you in the face. Like, do you want to keep on getting smacked? I have this conversation with my reps all the time. I go, you're getting your ass handed to you. Do you still do you want that to happen? And if they answer yes, that's something totally different. But they go, no.
That's just weird. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had one person in particular where it's like, no, I'm going to do a bad job. I don't want you to expect me to do a good job. Like, I'm just going to be bad. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So
were you looking around for the candid camera? No, I'm being stitched up here.
And the person ended up leaving 3 days later, right? Like, they didn't want to be there. So, but but like, typically if someone, but I'm like, hey, listen, it sounds like you're having a hard time with this. You shared these things, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it's not a really great experience for you. You go, oh no, like, it's really not. Okay, well, do you want to keep having a not great experience? And if they say no, it's like, okay, cool. Well, not cool, but it's like, hey, that's how do you want to feel? Well, what helps? And so like, I'm asking them the same questions that I'm just telling you. It's like, what's going to help you feel that way? When have you felt that way in the past? And if they don't know, then I'll say, hey, something that might be really, really helpful is just taking inventory of when you feel this way. Here's what's worked for me in the past. What do you think about that? And then it's really up to them. to do. So I think to me, it's just more so if they're like, oh no, like Gabrielle, that sounds too hippy dippy, whatever else. And they're more so caught up on the word hippy dippy than they are about what's in it for them. Then it's just more so like, let's have a conversation about like what's in it for you. And if the hippy dippy method supports it, awesome. But if it doesn't, that's fine. But just seems like there's an opportunity to have a better experience.
Yeah. Reframe it as what the top sports performers do. Because
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's sorting out where that top 3 inches needs to be. So
Yeah, and that piece is not even hippy dippy, but like, I mean, I say hippy dippy because
that they're your words and they're funny. Yeah.
But yeah, no, but it's like, I mean, I learned that method from a therapist. So, or yeah, so it's like, and she didn't have crystals. She didn't have crystals in her room.
And no, but it's funny when you were referring to it. I mean, I was
Yeah.
making notes here. You referred to the discovery.
Yeah.
Where are you now? Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
Hey, this is pretty much where we started off. It's what a good salesperson does. And you ask questions, you understand it. Right. Okay. If you really want to do something about that, these are things you'll do.
I wonder, like,
Wow, imagine that.
the sales profession modeled itself more, or like started to see itself more as a sort of therapist than, yeah, like, okay, so like you can, yeah, I feel like we could probably learn a lot more about.
Let's keep this one a secret. We've got a product here.
No, I'm like more honestly, like, okay, because imagine if, because not everybody's going to be open to therapy, but I know, like, if I'm going to therapy and I pay a therapist for 1 hour, an hour and a half, and I haven't said a damn word that whole time, I want a refund. I'm giving them the worst marks on ZocDoc. Like, no, they have no bedside manner. Like, no, they'd be a terrible, terrible therapist. So why is it that we think that we can go in and essentially be like help really partner with people on how do you move to like your ideal state, your optimal state? And I have no idea where you're starting from. So it doesn't really matter how good our solution is. If it's misapplied, it's all going to blow up in everyone's faces.
I don't know where you started. I don't know where you want to finish. I don't even know what's going on, but I'm going to tell you anyway. As you say, crazy. You
It's wild.
Yeah. Oh, look, I've got to be respectful for your time, but this has been absolutely brilliant. We've gone way off course. However, I mean, I really hope people listen to this are taking the value, because there's some really top stuff in here. Really top stuff.
You don't have to say that because I'm here.
No, I'll edit it out afterwards. I told you we don't edit. I lied. What about you feel good? You're in such a good mood today. I want you to carry on. I'll just chop it after this. I'll go chop it before the good idea of a new whole sales training type thing's going to go. Keep that under my hat. I'm joking. People will hear this.
It's all good. I said I follow on Instagram. I only follow therapists. I joke around. I only follow therapists and witches. There's some sales humor in there. And the most that I really learn about how to interact, I mean, it's all interacting with people at the end of the day, but a lot of the inspiration for how I coach my team and how I engage in my profession, a lot of it is from like what I'm learning from these therapists, and like, how do you build trust? How do you maintain trust? How do you have incredibly healthy relationships? How do you really demonstrate that you're listening to someone in pursuit of having a better relationship? So I think that's a untapped source of really great information.
There you go. I think probably might have missed it first time around. Now you've given it again. No, joking apart. How can people get in touch with you? Do you post stuff on Instagram?
I do not. I don't have a single post on Instagram. I'm only there for the therapist, but you can check me out on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. I know you put some good.
GB Blackwell. Yeah.
We'll pop that in the link as well. Gabrielle GB Blackwell, the SaaStress. I mean, search for SaaStress.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Listen, if
can't be many, and if they are, you.
I see anyone with SaaStress in there, I'm coming for you.
Forget the hippy dippy stuff.
I must set a spell on you.
I'm turning. I've got another side that we don't like to see so often. No, really, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and there's some great stuff in here that you shared. I'll try and capture it to the notes to make sure people are aware and they'll pick up on it as they're listening.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks, Gabrielle.
Thanks.